Hi,
Make it
David.
happen in the Philippines. That's the name of the
Yes.
campaign. Which countries are you looking to reach out to, and which sectors do you think their money will be well spent in when you look at where that money's probably going to go in your country?
Yeah, thanks, David, and hello again. We're basically opening our doors. We'd like to basically make this announcement, make it happen in the Philippines as our way to attract again our friends, investor friends from all around the world to look into the Philippines. Philippines has been generating a lot of good ratings, whether it's an investment or credit ratings, and cited in many of the surveys for with respect to investments. We've recently been part of the RCEP that has been signed by ASEAN and 5 other countries. We're continuing with a very aggressive infrastructure development program and a lot of structural reforms that we're doing, and essentially inviting a lot of our friends, especially into 5 sectors that we have really identified as winning sectors. These are basically electronics, automotive, aerospace, copper, and IT, BPM. And these are industries that Philippines is known for. So it would be pretty exciting months ahead. Despite the pandemic, we've seen also early signs of recovery because of the pandemic. And as we are reopening the sectors, we have been seeing signs of recovery in our GDP. Our exports is back to positive territory, and even PMI indices and the like.
Okay, now I need to ask, when you look at FDI, and we're showing the list of the 5 sectors you wish, of course, to investors into in the Philippines, a lot of these are power intensive, and the reason I bring that up, higher costs, not that they're a deal breaker sometimes, but they tend to incentivize investors to look at other options. In the case of the Philippines, that's high power cost is one, and also high corporate taxes. What's the government doing to bring those 2 things down, or at least incentivize or help offset those costs to investors?
Yeah, they should better talk to us, our board of investments. We shall be willing to work out with them means to address those power costs. In fact, we have made arrangements with our Department of Energy, and they specifically told us that any investors that might be needing help in this area, they will make sure that they will be assisted when it comes to addressing those power costs. But mind you also that there are areas in the Philippines that have super low power costs, and all the investors have to do is really search for these locations. And at the same time, they will all be assisted by our Board of Investments and the Department of Trade and Industry. The other thing you mentioned on corporate income tax rate, there is an ongoing structural structural reform that will bring down our tax rate from 30% to 20%. And it will be an immediate reduction from 30 to 25% as soon as the bill is passed, and the bill is currently being discussed at the Senate. And we are really looking forward to a much lower corporate income tax rate in the months to come.
Right. So in terms of timetables, hopefully that falls into place. The other thing is, as you attract investments right now, so people who say would be looking at the country eventually put their investments in, I would imagine the timetable for that takes them beyond 2022, when maybe there's a new government that's going to be in place, a new president, what have you. How does the Philippines ensure continuity and consistency of policy beyond 2022?
Well, we've been, Philippines part of a lot of world organizations, World Trade, United Nations, and many other organizations. And over the years, you've seen how Philippines and especially economic policies have been insulated from changes in government and administrations. And essentially, it's a one direction towards improving structural the business environment. You can only expect more and more improvement in laws, in the incentive system, in whatever support that can be given to the business. So that's the guarantee that we're giving, and all these basic guarantees to foreign investors, they're not changing over the years and over different administrations.
Okay, and since we're speaking of guarantees, I need to ask you this question. It comes up sometimes, not all the time. Can you guarantee that foreign investors will not have to deal with any corruption in the Philippines?
Oh yeah, oh definitely. Our president, especially this president that we have, President Duterte, is very much at the forefront of really fighting corruption, illegal drugs, and peace and criminality in the Philippines. And it has changed a lot. That's why our president, even on over 4 years in leadership, has been garnering over 90% approval rating from the people, Filipino people, over 90%. It's really a very high rating. That means that the people are really satisfied with how his leadership is taking really how he's leading the country, and that really these corruption issues are all being addressed head on.
Okay, well, we'll take your word for it. Of course, we'll revisit that just in case anything comes up. Secretary Lopez, I'd also like to ask, so I believe year to date, or January to October, in terms of the FDI that's been approved by the Board of Investments, 826 billion, that's the local currency. That translates the current exchange rate to about 17 billion, roughly, if I'm doing my math correctly there. Do you think you get to 1 trillion Philippine pesos by the end of this year?
Yes. Yes, David, we're still on track, and we're really looking forward to at least matching what we had last year, despite the pandemic year this year. And even on the FDI numbers, I don't know if you've seen it, the last 4 months, consecutive months, we've been growing something like over 40%. It's really quite amazing that even in this pandemic year, the past 4 months up to August, we've been really posting positive growth on FDI. So a lot of confidence happening. And really internally also, we're part of the interagency task force on the anti-COVID-19. And we're really gearing up towards reopening gradually, safely. And we've seen health cases really going down. And we're looking forward to the vaccine, which is just around the corner. And we're preparing for the acquisition of vaccine for the Filipinos. And so hopefully this will be a good rebound that we're looking into, especially for 2021.
Right, because right now, when you look at the forecasts for 2020, at least, the Philippines is expected to take the biggest hit in terms of the economy. Final question for you as well here. When, I guess looking forward, and you talk to many people outside, people can come up with a list of risks of investing in the country. So let me ask you directly, let me just, let this come from you. What do you think are, say, the 1-2 biggest risks that foreign investors risk by putting their money in the Philippines, and how are you addressing that?
Often the risk, right now, consumer confidence is picking up, but it's not to where we were during pre-COVID levels. So the pickup from the consumption spending is happening slowly. But we wish that it would have been stronger as pre-COVID. We're the second fastest growing economy in Southeast Asia. So maybe consumer confidence for now would be a risk factor. And the pace of recovery is one that is still being worked on. But again, as I mentioned, the signs of recovery are already there. It's showing, but as seen when compared to other countries, we were actually the most affected because we really implemented a very strict lockdown. But I think it's working in our favor because at least we were able really to manage the spread of the virus. And thankfully, I mean, at that time, we were balancing lives and livelihood versus livelihood, but now we're taking them together and just balancing it. So the consumer confidence is one factor that we really have to look into.